Yo, what's going on YouTube, and welcome back to Goal Line Hockey. It is Goal Line Hockey Live. We are doing our preseason power rankings, and we're having some technical difficulties. You're going to see that from the last stream if you were watching that, but I think we should be able to fix some of those issues here today. We are live here on this Sunday morning, October 1st, and we are getting ready for our next NHL season. Guys, I'm very excited for this coming season, and I'm really excited to be doing some different things, but with those changes means a couple of difficulties, and as they're having issues and some growing pains through the preseason at the NHL level. Here at Goal Line Hockey, we're doing some new things. We're using a new live streaming software. We're using OBS Studio. We're going to enhance the quality of the streams for this season and things like that. So it's going to come with its benefits. It's also going to come with its drawbacks. And I'm hoping that some of the changes we've made here will make it a little bit better. Huge shout out here to Irish, as he's helping me figure this out. So hopefully it looks a little bit better for you guys, either watching now live or watching the playback. Let me know if you guys are watching live or the playback in the comment section down below. So with that, out and further ado, let's go through all 32 NHL teams. So starting off at number 32, probably not going to surprise anybody. I think really this bottom five is very much the bottom five of most people out there. It's starting at number 32 is the San Jose Sharks. They're not a very good team. There's a couple guys that I think they could trade at the trade deadline that could actually help them out and actually make a pretty big difference for them. But in terms of for the overall majority of the roster, there's not enough there. I really like Mario Ferraro. I like guys like Anthony Duclair. But other than that, there's a lot of things that I don't like about this team. Bringing in Mikael Granlund, a salary dump. Marc-Edouard Vlasic isn't really the best. Even Mike Hoffman, they've taken a lot of deals that are kind of just to kind of break things up a little bit, right? They needed to get to the cap floor, and it really wasn't so much about them going out trying to win a Stanley Cup this offseason. It was about trying to get to the cap floor so they can tank and hopefully go for a guy like Macklin Celebrini, who is expected to be the first overall pick next June. So when I look at the Sharks, the goaltending's not great. It's Kaapo Kähkönen and Mackenzie Blackwood. It's going to be a lot of questions there as well, and a lot more questions than answers. And I think when you look at that team, there's a lot of things that just I don't think are going to go their way necessarily. At number 31 is the Philadelphia Flyers. This one's kind of tough with John Tortorella as the head coach. You always want to believe that his teams are always going to be in a fight. I think they could be up until the point where we start seeing injuries. And if Sean Couturier gets hurt in the first month or two, or Travis Konecny, they cannot afford any injuries in Philadelphia. And it's something that I'm really just kind of looking at this team, and the Flyers have some skill there, right? They're a little bit further along. They have the Owen Tippetts. Yes, they still have Couturier and Konecny and Atkinson and some guys like that. They're going to put up a little bit of a fight, but the back end has me a little concerned. I'm not sure how good Ginning is. Is Cam York going to start this season? There's some questions about his health. Tortorella didn't really say much in a press conference the other day, so we don't really know what's going to happen there. But there's a lot of things about this team that scream tank and rebuild. And not to mention goaltending. Urson played well last year, but can he do that for a full season this year? The expectations are going to be that he can. Can he actually do that? Are two different things. We don't even know if Carter Hart's going to be there by the end of this season. So that's another thing that I'm looking at. So there's a couple little things here and there with the Philadelphia Flyers that give you promise, but they're going to be a bottom feeder. They're playing in the Eastern Conference. That's a tough conference to play in, especially the Metro. And I think with the Atlantic getting better this year, I think it's going to be a rough season for the Flyers. And maybe they have a better roster than maybe the effort that they're actually going to put out there this season. But a lot of guys I'm questioning their health that are their higher end players, and I just don't know if the goaltending is going to be as good as it was last year. And we'll see what happens. But as of right now, I'm not sold on that. M in the chat, welcome. He says, your intro reminds me of Keeping Carlson intro. Have you heard of them? No, I don't know necessarily what that is. You got to let me know. Thank you for that, though, MM, and welcome to the Goal Line Hockey live stream. So moving up to number 30, we're looking at the Chicago Blackhawks. So the Chicago Blackhawks are kind of an interesting team here because, yes, they did get the first overall pick this year. They bring in Connor Bedard. He's instantly their best player on the team. But, there's a lot of questions still with this team in the sense of what is their direction for this season moving forward. And that is rebuild. And they're tanking still. So they don't have the depth. They bring in Bedard, which is a great start, but they don't have great defense. They don't have good goaltending. They're not there yet. There is reason for optimism, though. Keep an eye out for some young defensemen like Vlasic and Kaiser this season in Chicago. I think those names are going to draw some attention, but this team is definitely not a playoff team in any regard. Goaltending, not really anything there. So the way I look at them right now, this is definitely number 30. They could be a little bit higher, a little bit lower on that list, but as of right now, it's definitely rebuild time still in Chicago. So now we move up to number 29, and that's the Montreal Canadiens. And the Montreal Canadiens are kind of interesting because I might actually have them too low, but again, the goaltending thing really has me concerned. It's Jake Allen and Samuel Montembeault, and the roster itself doesn't actually look that bad. Up front, Suzuki, Doc, Newhook, that's a pretty good top 3 center group in my opinion. But then you have some guys around that really have you concerned. Like Sean Monahan is listed on the first line. Raphael Harvey-Pinard, probably more of a bottom 6 guy. He's on the top 6. Juraj Slafkovsky, people are already potentially calling him the next Patrick Stefan, but again, I don't want to say that. The kid was drafted 2 years ago, has only played one NHL season, but there's some genuine concern about Slafkovsky and his development. So, again, Montreal, and that's supposed to be the strong suit of Montreal. So, the back end, Matheson, Savard, and then a bunch of young guys, Arbor Jacki, Jordan Harris, Kovacevic, Gooley. A lot of uncertainty there. So the way I look at the Montreal Canadiens, there's a lot more questions than answers to this team. I think they're going to do a little bit better than some of these other teams, but that's not saying much. Again, the Atlantic Division's going to be better. Detroit's going to be better. Buffalo's going to be better. Ottawa's going to be better. But I think in terms of looking at Montreal, I think they're going to be a victim of that division. And I think they're going to get pretty much preyed on by everybody else there. So we'll see how things go for Montreal, but they're going to be in tough this year. And Irish says, I'm a bit higher on Montreal. I want to see Newhook crush it. Absolutely, I agree with you. Honestly, I think he could take Doc's spot as that second line center in the future. I think just because of the seniority and, again, Doc's been there for a little bit longer. He has more merit in terms of his game overall. So I think Newhook is going to be motivated. He's going to look to be a top 6 player. And maybe we see some combination of where maybe Doc and Newhook are both on the second line and one of them plays the wing. I don't know how Marty St. Louis is going to want to do that because down the middle, then Harvey-Pinard's your third line center. Again, there's a little bit of tweaking they could do. And again, this is from Daily Faceoff, so we'll see how things go. But I really like Alex Newhook. I think that was a great move there by the Montreal Canadiens this summer, bringing him in. A casualty for the Avalanche, but a benefit for the Habs. And, they're really trying to develop that center core, which they definitely have done here over the last couple of years. Hopefully we'll see Frank Nazar someday in Montreal. And actually, no. He went to Chicago in that deal. Never mind. But, again, you're seeing the development of some of those younger players. I like Jake Evans, too, on the fourth line center role. Tanner Pearson, I think the whole thing around him, he's going to be motivated. The whole situation with Vancouver last year. A lot to like there. But let's move on to number 28, which is one of my favorite teams. And that sucks because that's still meaning they're going to be bottom 5 in the NHL standings, and that is the Anaheim Ducks. I think the Anaheim Ducks are going to be one of those teams that's really going to struggle this year because, for the last couple years, they've been able to hang their hat on John Gibson, but his development has really slowed as a goaltender, and I'm really upset about that. I really like John Gibson and what he's done in Anaheim, but I think it's going to be a tough season for the Ducks, and, I think the benefit we could see this year of maybe a bad season for John Gibson, they are really high on number one. He's number one for a reason. Lucas Dostal could be really solid for the Ducks. And you hate to say that franchise tag, the next franchise goaltender in the NHL, could be residing in Anaheim. He's put up some solid numbers in San Diego the last 2 years. Keep an eye out on Lucas Dostal out in Anaheim, potentially taking over John Gibson as the number one goalie out in Orange County, California. Like I said, similar to Montreal in the sense that I think their center core is actually really stacked. Trevor Zegras, Mason McTavish, and Leo Carlsson. That is, I would argue, in terms of maybe the next 5 years of a center core, that might be one of the best right now. And you see some of the surrounding parties there with guys like Ryan Strome, Jakob Silfverberg, Troy Terry. That's a pretty good group there. Now, there's already questions about the health of guys like Adam Henrique. Alex Killorn might be missing the first 6 weeks of the season already. So, there is some concern about that. And welcome to the chat, Toe. Thank you for joining. Thank you, Irish, MM. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for joining us here on this Sunday morning. So what else? You guys are distracting me, but that's a good thing. I want to see you guys in the chat. The Ducks defense, they've always been prized for their good defense, but that is definitely not the case anymore. They've gotten rid of Lindholm. They've gotten rid of Shea Theodore, and now it's pretty much nuked. And the only guy left in that is Cam Fowler. You have Drysdale, Haig, Gudis. Owen Zellweger could actually be a really good defenseman prospect. I'm really excited to see what he does. And they brought in Ilya Lyubushkin as well. And I think this will be kind of interesting to see how this group does. These are a lot of guys that I overall like as NHL players, but that's not saying much in terms of actual on-ice product. The Ducks are definitely far away from that. But, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that at this point, if you guys haven't watched my last video, it was Jamie Drysdale and Trevor Zegras. They are both unsigned still by the Anaheim Ducks, and that definitely changes things as well. But even with Zegras and Drysdale on this team, I still have them at number 28. So if they don't start the season for the Ducks, it's going to be even more concerning for Anaheim if they're not in the lineup to start the season. They're already going to be well behind the line. It's going to be even more so if they're not there. Toast said, finally a stream in decent time. I agree with that. Yes, we are trying to make these streams a little bit more time sensitive. I'm going to try and do nightly streams for the games during the week. I'll probably do one live stream per week here on the channel, and then for my members, we're going to be doing a members only live stream probably another 2 or 3 times during the week. So that's going to be kind of how we're going to run things this year. So I'm still going to do live streams here on the channel during the games and stuff, but it's probably only going to be once per week. And like I said, if you want to see that more often, join our membership program, which I believe PJ is one of our members. So if you want to join that Legion, I think it's for only $3 a month. It's the lowest tier, and you could be a member and do more of those live streams. But if not, I appreciate you guys just being in here right now. It definitely is nice to see you guys back. Puffy Lover, nice to see you there. He said, I still don't believe that the Oilers passed on Zegras. Was that the Philip Broberg draft, Puffy? I think that was, right? And I think if that's the case, I think Broberg is still a really good player, but a lot of people are already looking at him as a bust, which I think is crazy. But I want to see if that's the draft. Okay, it is. Yeah, so Philip Broberg. And we remember this with Victor Hedman in Tampa. Everybody forgets that. Everybody forgets that defensemen tend to develop a lot slower than forwards do. And even forwards take a while to develop, right? Look at the first year and a half of Jack Hughes. Everybody was like, oh my God, this guy's a bust. And next thing you know, he ends up being a really good player. And there we go. That is it right there. Thank you so much, Irish, for joining us here at Goal Line Hockey, becoming a member on the bronze tier. Thank you so much, Irish. I appreciate that. So back to what I was saying about defensemen, and we'll talk about Edmonton in a little bit, but I think Broberg is still a very good defenseman, and I think playing with Ekholm is really going to help his development going into this season. So getting back to our rankings here, at number 27, we're staying out west, and that is the Arizona Coyotes. And I hesitate to say the Coyotes here because I think Arizona is actually better than people are going to give them credit. Logan Cooley, if you guys have not seen that goal that Logan Cooley scored during the preseason in his first game, whew, oh my God, that was incredible. Logan Cooley is going to be really good. I think there was a lot of question about would he go back to Minnesota this year to play with the Gophs, but he ends up going to Arizona, which I think is huge for the Arizona Coyotes. And not only for Logan Cooley, but for the development of some of the guys around him. I think this is going to be a really good thing for that entire group. So we'll see how things go there. But you want to talk about development. We're already seeing him develop quite quickly there. And, that's looking like a pretty good group as well. You've got Nick Bukestad, Logan Cooley, and Barrett Hayden. We're seeing some pretty good stuff there. Cooley will be a 100-point player. Oh, man. So Toe is going out on a limb. I don't know if I'm ready to say that yet, but I think he is going to be a pretty nice addition to the Coyotes this season. Even if he hits 20 to 30 goals this year, I mean, is that not a success? I could see him going along the line of like an Alex Newhook or a Shane Pinto. I think that's kind of what you're going to see with a guy like Logan Cooley, very quickly developing into a second, third line player. Cooley will be a 100-point player. Yeah, that's okay. Not this season. Okay, all right. I was gonna say, Toe, you're a Caps fan. I don't know why you're so high on Cooley, but yeah, I think that's definitely in the cards at some point. But there's a lot of that would depend for Cooley in terms of him, because if Dylan Guenther continues to develop, are we gonna see Nick Schmaltz still in Arizona? Clayton Keller? Matthias Michelli, who actually had a really good season last year. I want to see him develop this year. So there's definitely a couple guys. I'm going to be watching more Coyotes games this year than I have in the past because I want to see the development of those guys. Logan Cooley, Guenther, Michelli. I think there's a lot to like there in Arizona. And again, goaltending gives me a second glance. Karel Vejmelka and Connor Ingram. A couple of injuries, they have a lot of money spent on dead contracts in Voracek, Weber, Little. You guys probably forgot those guys are in the NHL, but we'll see how things go. The defense definitely is looking promising. They brought in Matt Dumba, which is definitely an interesting move there. Juuso Valimaki, Troy Stetcher, JJ Moser. They've got some interesting pieces there. I'm not sure where Victor Soderstrom is. He's not listed on the blue line. I don't know what's up with that. I don't know. You guys could probably let me know down below. Moving up to number 26 is the Calgary Flames. So Calgary is kind of interesting here. Shout out to PJ, one of our members here on the channel. Calgary is really a lot in terms of how are they going to adjust to the coaching staff, right? Because last year, a lot of people will chalk up the lack of success last season to Daryl Sutter. Because you look at this roster on paper, Huberdeau, Lindholm, Kadri, Dylan Dubé, the emergence of guys like Matt Coronado this season potentially, Mangiapane, Backlund. There's some really good players up front. The back end, Noah Hannafin, Anderson, Uyghur, Zadorov, Tanev. And then in between the pipes, a guy that not too long ago was talked about being one of the best goalies in the NHL, and a guy like Jacob Markstrom. Where's that going to go this year? So I don't think it was the coaching staff in Calgary. I got to be honest with you. I just think the makeup of this team isn't built to win. And you could throw as much skill at the wall as you possibly can, but that doesn't necessarily mean there's enough cohesion there and enough to make this team a legit contender. Now, I'm a fan of the addition that they brought in here, making the coaching change, bringing in, I believe it's Conroy as their GM. I like that direction, but I just don't think they're going to be there this year. And, again, I think that division is going to be tougher than it's been as well. I think Vancouver's going to be better. We saw how good Seattle can be. So when I put Calgary against teams like that, unfortunately, I just don't think they stack up very well in terms of just an overall matchup compared to those teams. So, unfortunately, as crazy as this sounds, I have Calgary just ahead of the Arizona Coyotes in terms of the basement of that Central Division. So, going to number 25, we're staying here with the St. Louis Blues. And St. Louis is different because I think they're the opposite effect, where I think they have a really good coach in Craig Berube. They've got some decent talent up front. They have a good roster, but unlike Calgary, where they at least have the benefit of good goaltending that could maybe bail them out, I am not a fan of the Binnington, Joel Hofer goalie tandem. I was more of a fan of seeing Binnington and Thomas Greiss last year than I am for this, because to be honest with you, and everyone in my life will tell you that I can be a bit of a hothead, and I can get very temperamental, and I understand Binnington's issues, but that doesn't make it okay. And at the NHL level, Jordan Binnington, and I heard this from John Tortorella the other day. We're not talking about the Flyers, but he mentioned how goaltending, and we've heard this saying a lot before in the past, goaltending can make your bench really, really big in terms of confidence or really small. And if you see Jordan Binnington bumping into the other team's players when he gets pulled off the ice and things like that, how is the bench going to look big after that? And I think that is one of the reasons I just don't think St. Louis is going to be very good this year. In a full 82-game schedule where there's a grind, and we all know what happens in January and February of the NHL season. It's the dog days of the summer. And I got to be honest with you, that puts a lot of pressure on Joel Hofer, because there's going to be a lot of games where he probably has to jump in because Binnington didn't get that extra 5 minutes of sleep 2.5 hours before the game, or didn't get the right venti coffee before the game, or whatever else. And I'm not trying to discredit Jordan Binnington here, but we've seen enough of a sample size here where it's too much. And to be honest with you, I don't think this Blues defense is capable of just bailing him out. And Craig Berube's system, I don't know if that's good enough to bail him out. And I like Nick Leddy, Parayko, Krug, Falk, Bortuzzo, Perunovic, but that's not good enough in my opinion. And yeah, he's a problem for the league, Toe said. Irish, our newest member here at Goal Line Hockey, Binnington is a problem for team culture. I couldn't agree more. You guys are 1,000% on the dot. But the good news, if you want to look at any for the Blues, Pavel Buchnevich, Jordan Thomas, Jordan Kyrou listed as your first line. According to Daily Faceoff, I think that's pretty good. But then you start to get to a lot of guys that are on prove-it deals. You have Brandon Saad, Kasperi Kapanen, Jacob Vrana, Kevin Hayes. Those are all guys that are like, all right, prove it to me. And I'm just not sure we're going to see what happens with this group in terms of just a ton of success. I don't think it's there necessarily. So there's things to like about this team moving forward. They had a couple good draft picks in the first round this past draft and things like that. But in terms of winning a Stanley Cup this year, I think they did themselves no favors by taking those picks. And I'm sure that Bill Armstrong has a plan there. All right, I think it's Doug Armstrong. It's Doug Armstrong, right? The GM of the Blues. We have to make things difficult, right? People with the same last name, GMs of multiple teams in the NHL, but I digress. So let's move on to number 24, because the little team in Ohio that everybody forgets about definitely had a lot of attention this past month. The Columbus Blue Jackets at number 24. We know the whole Mike Babcock situation, and similar to Calgary in the sense of maybe because we didn't see him behind the bench during a regular season game, but how is the room going to be after Babcock? Because this could be a moment of union for the team. Like, oh my God, like it just lifts a ton of pressure off your shoulders. We get a new coach in here that probably should have got the job to begin with. Or the room becomes super divided because of the fact that really, we didn't see guys like Boone Jenner and Goudreau kind of back their younger teammates during that whole press release thing. And I'm not putting the pressure on those guys, but I think that could be a problem where it ends up dividing the room more than helping. So we're going to see what happens with the Blue Jackets. They have suspect goaltending. I really like Merzlikins, but again, it's similar to a lot of these teams down here. Is it reliable enough for an 82-game schedule that I could say, yeah, Columbus has stable goaltending, and I'm not genuinely concerned about that? That's not the case at all. Daniil Tarasov, similar to St. Louis, you have a young goaltender in the wings. I believe Tarasov is actually injured, and he's on the IR right now, so I don't even know. They might be having their third goalie as their backup to start this season. So hopefully Merzlikins is ready to go because there's going to be a lot of pressure on him early in the season. I like some of the emergence of some of the younger guys. I've really been a fan of Texier. He missed the entirety of last season due to, I believe it was like off-ice mental health things. So hopefully he does well. I love those nice stories like that. So hopefully he plays well. He's going to be playing alongside Fantilli and Laine, so that could be really good for him. There's a lot to like in Columbus, but again, in that division, it's going to be really tough. It's going to be really difficult to win games, and I just don't know if they're going to be there. I like Severson and Provy coming in, but again, that helps Band-Aid a bigger issue on that defense. I just don't think there's enough there yet. So that's at number 24. The Oilers broke the Flames in the playoffs a few years ago. It's been downward slide ever since. Yep, that's very true. Javante Patton, welcome in. What's going on? Penguins getting their revenge on you this season. I remember that, Javante. You were in our live stream when the Islanders eliminated Pittsburgh during the end of the regular season. I do remember that. Yes. Welcome back, Javante. I'm glad to see you in here. Yeah, no hard feelings. Absolutely. I was a fan of Pittsburgh. I liked that run that they went on. Any team that has Crosby and Malkin, especially from the Eastern Conference, it's easy to hate them, but it's also very easy to respect what they've done in their careers. Just the amount of success that group has had. I could sit here and call them the whiners and the crybabies, Letang, Malkin, and Crosby, but give the respect where it's deserved. And the success of that franchise over the last 30 years, since the 90s, even in the Lemieux era, has really been incredible. And hats off to the Penguins there. What's going on, Shaka? Welcome to the live stream. One of our moderators in here. What's going on? The Sharks at 32. No surprise. I know, Shaka. I know. I'm sure you're not a huge fan of that, but that's the reality. That's where the Sharks are at. So anyway, let's get back to this. Number 23, we are staying in the Metro in the Eastern Conference, looking at the Washington Capitals. I think there's a lot of concerns about the Caps here, and I think I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt here, not putting them closer to like Philadelphia, and even putting them ahead of Columbus because of what they've done in the past. But Washington definitely has me concerned. The difference between a team like Washington and Columbus and Philly, I like the goaltending. That's one thing I am going to say about Washington. Darcy Kemper, Charlie Lindgren, I think that was a pretty good tandem last year. That's going to continue over this year. Up front, Ovechkin, Backstrom, Kuzi, I like that group. That's a good core to your forward group. Going to be a fan of that going into this season. Sonny Milano, Tom Wilson, Dylan Strome, Oshie, those guys are going to have to continue to produce. The Capitals are not a team that can rely solely on Ovechkin. As much as they'd love to, because Ovechkin scores 100 goals each season, to get to the playoffs, especially in the Eastern Conference this year, Washington needs to get that depth scoring. And the games that they did get that depth scoring, they won a ton of hockey games. They are a tough team to play against, and maybe that'll change a little bit with Laviolette, not the coach. Spencer Carberry coming in from Toronto, former Hershey Bears coach. I wasn't going to let that slide. Anytime I could throw the Bears up there, you know I will. But I'm really a big fan of that. We're going to see some guys from the Hershey Bears getting into the lineup. Joe Snively, Alexei Protas. Those are guys that are going to have to step up. The rookies need to step up once again this season for the Caps. So we'll see how things go there. Rasmus Sandin, he really dipped off after that first week of joining the Caps. So hopefully he gets back on track. I really like Joel Edmondson. He might be missing some time, though, to start the year with injury. Marty Fehérváry, love that name. Really good player. So hopefully he continues to develop. There's a lot to like in Washington. It's just I don't know if they have the depth, especially in the conference that they're in, to get it done. Toe said, I was concerned, but the preseason games give me hopes. I feel like Carberry is perfect for the job, and Kuzi and Backstrom look like they are back to their 2018 form. As an Islanders fan, I hope you're incorrect on that, but from the Caps perspective, that's definitely something that they're going to need this season. And I think that divide between playing the younger players and not playing the younger players is going to be different from what they had under Laviolette. And I think that's going to be a problem ultimately for the Rangers, is not playing the younger players enough and giving them enough of a leash. I think we're going to see a huge sigh of relief from some of those younger guys like Dylan Strome, Milano, Snively, because I think they're going to get more ice time. But, the one thing I have heard especially on Twitter, because everybody loves to take the information from Twitter, but a lot of people have not been a fan of Mantha. So, Toe, what do you think of Mantha? Do you think he's ready for this season? Because a lot of the things I've heard, not good in terms of Anthony Mantha. I'd love to know your guys' thoughts on that. Moving up to number 22, we're finally leaving the Eastern Conference for a minute. We're going back to the West, looking at the Seattle Kraken. We know the success they had last year. There might be a little bit of a hangover going into this season. They knocked off the Avalanche, first round of the playoffs. A lot of people had them as Cup favorites. Seattle put them to bed in Game 7 in Colorado, mind you. I think Seattle's legit. I think they're a team that could ultimately make the playoffs, but going into the preseason, they didn't really do much in terms of making moves. The goaltending, a little bit suspect. We saw some good stuff from them, but was it enough? I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what happens there. Philip Grubauer and Chris Driedger is your goalie tandem. We're going to see some interesting stuff there, so... defense, I love their defense. One of the biggest blue lines in the entire National Hockey League. Vince Dunn, Larson, Alexiak, Dumoulin, and Schultz. Definitely taking the former Pittsburgh Penguins approach there with some of those guys, but I love it. I think I think Seattle's in a pretty decent spot. Weinberg comes back, Beniers comes back, and I want to see if guys like Eli Tolvanen, oh, crap. I forgot his name. Kartai. I forgot his first name. It's like Jack Kartai. I think it's Jack Kartai. AHL Player of the Year, right? Took the Coachella Valley Thunderbirds to... is it Firebirds? It's the Firebirds. To the Calder Cup Finals. Same thing with Shane Wright. So those three guys in particular up front, I'm definitely looking to see what happens if they get into the lineup, because Seattle actually has a pretty deep team this year. It's Ty Kartai. Seattle will miss the playoffs this year, so that's the approach from Irish. I think there's definitely reason to believe that. Yeah, Firebirds. Okay, so I was right. Okay, so let's move along. Staying in the Pacific Northwest, we are looking at the Vancouver Canucks at number 21. And, you want to look at a team that could maybe catch some people for a surprise. That's the Vancouver Canucks. And I think Vancouver is one of my breakout team picks, and that's why I have the trumpet. I'm going to be doing the trumpet for the teams that I think could be breakout teams this year. I think it's Vancouver, because Vancouver typically is the team that nobody thinks much about, and for good reason, right? They haven't been healthy the last couple years. Things haven't gone well for them. I am not a huge fan of JT Miller. You guys know that. If you watch any live stream I do with the Vancouver Canucks on, his body language is terrible. he looks like a child out there. Every time something doesn't go right, he cries about it, and it's just not good to see. I'm not a fan of that at all, especially for a guy that's supposed to be a veteran and potentially a captain for that team or one of the leaders. And we know Quinn Hughes will be the captain up there this year, but that's something I just do not like, and I think that could hold them back. A lot of criticism about the defense in the offseason, rightfully so. They were really bad last year, but I'm a fan of some of the changes they made there. There's some things to like. I like the coaching change. If anybody is anybody, they know that coaching staff is a little bit different from what they had in the past in Bruce Boudreau, and I think Rick Tocchet is more of a player coach, and I think that's going to be a benefit for some of these guys. You bring in Carson Soucy, Ian Cole, Filip Hronek, and Christian Wolanin. I think a full season of Hronek, people are going to start to see, yeah, they did trade a first-round pick for him, but ultimately that was a playoff pick that the Islanders had anyway. I think Hronek is a decent player, and I think that the Canucks are going to be happy to have him. So we'll see how things go. Tyler Myers on the third pair is a good thing because that means they're finally getting some depth ahead of him. So we'll see what happens. Again, a lot of uncertainty with a guy like Ian Cole. Is he going to be healthy? How good is he going to be? But kind of bummed you put the Canucks ahead of the Caps. I know, Toe. And a lot of that, again, you're seeing a lot of Metro teams at the bottom here because I think that it's going to be a little bit of a gap between Philly, Columbus, and Washington and the rest of that Metro division. But that's kind of what I'm thinking there. Irish said would be in a rebuild. The Caps would be in a rebuild if Ovi wasn't going for the record. Yeah, that's true. And I have heard that as well. Once they are looking to rebuild. So I don't know. We'll see. Again, it's too far out because I think Ovechkin still has a few years left in him. But we'll see how things go this season. And they need to stay healthy. Oshie's been hurt. Wilson's been hurt. Backstrom was hurt last year. They need to keep those guys healthy. And John Carlson, that freak accident last year. So we'll see how things go. Number 20 is the Detroit Red Wings. So Detroit, I think Steve Yzerman made it clear this summer that he's pretty much saying what we already know, that this team is not ready to make the playoffs. And they gave some hope last year that, hey, we're going in the right direction. We're improving. We're not bottom 5 every year. But they are not there yet. And, like I said, as crazy as it is, they made a ton of changes the last 2 years. But they're still not there. Right now you've got DeBrincat, Larkin, and Raymond as your first line. That's going to give a lot of wet dreams to the Red Wing fans out there. Because if you go into the offseason knowing that was going to be your group, bringing in DeBrincat, that's great. A really good addition there at a fairly decent contract as well. So we'll see what happens. The depth, Michael Rasmussen, Kopp, and Perron is your second line. You automatically see there's a lot of guys that are fringe NHL players and then second line, top 6 forwards in the same spot. And that does concern me a little bit. I like Christian Fischer. Daniel Sprong, he had a really good season for Seattle last year. They're going to need depth scoring from him. Jonathan Berggren, we're going to see more of him this year. The back end is going to be interesting because we're going to see maybe some veterans pushing the rookies or the younger guys on this team. You've got Wallman and Seider. Then you've got guys like Petrie, Gostisbehere, and Hall. Are they going to push out or Albert Johansson out of the lineup? And I think that's going to be an interesting story to watch. So we'll see what happens there. Ville Husso and Reimer is the goalie tandem as well up in the Motor City. Number 19 is the Buffalo Sabres. And the Buffalo Sabres, I'm really interested to see what happens with Buffalo because a lot of people have them really high up, really hyped about Buffalo. And rightfully so. Dylan Cousins was good last year. A couple of the other guys there were spectacular. But again, what have they shown us lately? And I think this is ultimately going to come down to the defense being better and the goaltending because we know what the forward group is. We're not going to see Jack Quinn probably till November at the earliest, so that could be a little bit concerning for the Sabres fans. But Devin Levi, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, that's your goalie tandem going into the year. Again, looks good on paper, but questionable in terms of what have you actually done for me. So we'll see what happens. One of the best additions I think they made this offseason, bringing in Clifton and Eric Johnson on that back end, that was huge for them. I really think that's going to pay off. We're going to see J.J. Paterka this year, Peyton Krebs. Pretty exciting there. So we'll see what happens in Buffalo. A fringe playoff team in my mind, but I think they're still ultimately going to miss out. Yo, we have a super chat, $6 from Finland, whatever that is, from Toe. He says Sprong was playing preseason games with a purple visor, and it gave me heavy Bia Pro vibes, and I'm all for it. Yes, apparently that is allowed now. We're starting to see tinted visors allowed in the NHL, which that could be kind of interesting. I haven't watched a ton of preseason games yet. I've been kind of looking at the recaps so far. So, yeah, I'm definitely interested to see how that goes this year. We know Ovechkin has always had the tinted visor, but some other guys are going to start doing that. So, thank you for the $6 Finland Toe, whatever that is. Thank you so much. I do appreciate that. And that's our first super chat for the season, so shout out to Toe there. Moving on up to number 18, and here we go. The trumpet will be playing again. Yes, sir. At number 18 is the Ottawa Senators. So they are my breakout team in... Okay, so Euros. Okay. My apologies, Toe. Euros. Six Euros. At number 18 is the Ottawa Senators. So the Ottawa Senators, right now, are a team that I think could be a lot better than they've been. Now, I think they need to add Shane Pinto. That's got to get done, because I think that's more a distraction to the room than anything right now. But Tkachuk, Stuchla, Giroux, Tarasenko, Norris, and Batherson is your top 6. And that's not even mentioning guys that I think could break out this season. I think Ridley Gregg could be a potential Tom Wilson-esque player next season. Shane Pinto, if he's in the lineup and signed, and Dominic Kubalik. I really like that group. That is a much better Ottawa team than we've seen really since the Carlson, Stone, Hoffman days. It's been a long time since we've seen a team like this in Ottawa, especially up front. I'm really excited to see what they do up there, and I think if Ali Desh ever joins us, he's our Sens fan here at the channel. I think there's a lot to be excited for up there. And not to mention the defense, Brandstrom, Artem Zub really had a coming out party last year. Sanderson, Shabbat, Chikrin, who I think was a huge addition for them last year. This is a good team. But again, here comes the goalie question. Jonas Korpisalo and Anton Forsberg. So I don't even know if Forsberg's actually healthy. So they might be another team before opening night going to their third goalie on the bench as a backup. Again, you start to see some concerns early on. That is one that I look at. But Korpisalo could either be a boom or bust here. They signed him to a long-term deal. I think it's a 5-year, $25 million contract. We'll see what happens with that. Number 17 is my New York Islanders. And the Islanders are a team that I'd love to have higher up. But it's basically the same team as we've seen. And there just hasn't been enough playoff success for me to be excited about this team. And I'd love to be more excited about the Islanders. I just don't see it. Their biggest benefits are that top 2 defense, the most confusing pairing in the league, Pelech and Pulock. Pelech and Pulock. Say that 100 times fast. Pelech and Pulock, and Varlamov and Sorokin. That is the blueprint of the Islanders. Now, if we see Barzal and Horvat really start ripping in a ton of goals this season and playing really well, well, then we might have a different story for the Islanders. And, you know, they're continuing to transition away from that defensive approach and starting to score more goals. Hey, that could be a real benefit for the Islanders. And they let loose a little bit, score more goals. Oliver Wahlstrom hasn't played for the Islanders since November. Remember, he had that really long injury. That was critical to the Islanders. They don't have enough scoring depth to begin with. And then Wahlstrom was out. So I expect to have him here. I think that's really going to make things a little bit better. But I think it's going to be interesting to see how things go with the Islanders. But a lot of people, including myself, not really too optimistic going into the season. Shaka said, wow, you have Nashville finishing second in the Central. We're getting there, Shaka. You're moving too far ahead. Hyde Park, Boston, in the house. Fourth like, 4 watching, started streaming 44 minutes ago. Thank you so much for joining us, John. I appreciate that. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for joining. Yeah, we've made some changes here. We're doing things on OBS Studio for the live stream, so now I'm able to do a little bit more fun here with our live streams, and I thought the Power Rankings format would be perfect for this. So that's how we're running things this season. Hopefully you guys like it, and yeah, we're going to be getting into some game live streams as soon as the season starts. That first night, it's, I believe, Pittsburgh and Chicago, so definitely stay tuned for that. Did the stream end? No, it didn't end yet. No. Shaka's trying to catch me off guard here. Had to do a restart. Yeah. Oh, jeez. So Irish, I apologize. He was helping me earlier. We had problems with the first live stream. So I'm going to give a quick applause to Irish because he helped us out. And like I said, huge news with him joining as a member here on the channel. So thank you so much, Irish. So let's move on to 16. And yes, you guys, my favorite thing. Here we go. Number 16 is the Pittsburgh Penguins. And the Penguins are my pick as the breakout team in the Metropolitan Division. And the reason I say that is a lot of people are discounting Pittsburgh, including myself. But I have them as a breakout team. You got to pick a side. So the way I look at Pittsburgh is, they're going to go as far as their goaltending lets them. That's been the story for Pittsburgh for the past few years. And I think that when you look at the Pittsburgh Penguins, you have the forward group. You have Gensel, Crosby, Malkin. Maybe a little bit behind that leaves you a little bit like, all right, we need a little bit more. The defense is still a little bit concerning as well. I'm going to admit that. You know, Carlson comes in, that's great, but you already have Chris Letang as your quarterback, puck-moving defenseman. I'd love to know how they work out the power play, though. Is it going to be Carlson and Letang on that first pairing, or are they going to split them up? I don't know. But either way, Pittsburgh is a better team than they were last year. But like I said, Tristan Jarry comes back, and Alex Nedeljkovic is your backup. Again, that's not much of an upgrade over anything Pittsburgh's had with Casey DeSmith or Matt Murray in the last couple of years. So, we'll see. And Penguins to trade Crosby to the Avs. Maybe. We'll see, Irish. I know you were asking for that last year, but we'll see what happens. I don't know. I think Pittsburgh's going to be a little bit too good to trade out Crosby, but who knows? Now, number 15. I'm surprised you guys haven't brought this one up yet, because at number 15... huge shift from last year because they finished the season with the President's Trophy. They were supposed to win the Cup, and they ended up getting eliminated in Boston in Game 7 of the first round, and that's the Boston Bruins. My concern about Boston is the amount that they lost in terms of leadership. Taylor Hall no longer there. Nick Foligno no longer there. If I'm mistaken, let me know. Yeah, Foligno and Hall both go to Chicago. No Patrice Bergeron. Did anybody forget him? Patrice Bergeron, that guy that was really good for the Bruins for the past decade and a half to 20 years, something like that. He's pretty good. Yeah, they're going to miss him. David Krejci, also gone. So, with those guys out of the lineup, that puts a lot of pressure on the depth coming in. Pavel Zacha is your first-line center. Morgan Geekie, I think he could be a breakout candidate for the Bruins. That's one positive I have for this team. But we've had a little bit of a shifting back and forth for Jim Montgomery between JVR and Marchand on the first line. That is genuinely concerning. James Van Riemsdyk is not a top 6 player in the NHL, and I think the depth is coming back to bite the Bruins in the ass this year. And I think this is a team that, yeah, you bring back Lucic, that's great, but this is not the 2011-2012 Boston Bruins. It's not the case. And their defense is okay. Grzelcyk, McAvoy, Lindholm, Shattenkirk, Forbort, and Carlo. Again, you're looking for former guys that were really good. You're looking for the names, right? Shattenkirk, Lucic, and JVR. But are they still that good today? I don't know about that. And the goaltending was so remarkably good last year with Allmark and Swayman. Can we realistically expect them to do that and have the same output and performance as last year? You're asking for way too much. I have the Boston Bruins here at number 15, and I want to know what you guys think of that, because I think we're in for a real rude awakening up there in Boston that I don't know if the Bruins fans are necessarily ready for. Or maybe they are, because they saw the writing on the wall with Krejci and Bergeron. I'm not sure, but I'd love to know what you guys think. Number 14 is Winnipeg. So the Winnipeg Jets, what is going good for them? A couple of things, actually. So the Winnipeg Jets are at number 14 for a couple reasons. First, Vezina goalie, Connor Hellebuyck. He might be one of the best goalies in the game. And with Vasilevsky hurt, we'll get to that later on. With Connor Hellebuyck, probably the best goalie in the NHL right now. He's going to make a difference. Laurent Brossoit coming back from the Vegas Golden Knights. He picked up a cup in Sin City, comes back to Winnipeg. That's going to be a rude awakening in terms of the cultural difference between Vegas and Winnipeg. But I guess he wanted to go back to Winnipeg. Up front, Kyle Connor, Mark Scheifele. I love bringing in Gabe Vilardi. He was really good for the LA Kings. He's going to be a very nice addition there. He's no Pierre-Luc Dubois quite yet, but he could be better than Dubois by the time his career is rolling and he's in his prime. Cole Perfetti, it's a shame he got hurt last year, but I think he's going to be better this year. Again, there's always that injury bug concern, but that's a part of hockey, so we'll see what happens there. Nikolai Ehlers, I like him as well. Rasmus Kupari, I think, could be a nice depth addition there. On the back end, Josh Morrissey looked like the Josh Morrissey we thought he was going to be when he was drafted. It's just taken him about 6 or 7 years to get there. And I think that the Jets, that defense still has a couple of questions here and there, but Neil Pionk, Nate Schmidt, Brendan Dillon, I like that group overall. There's a lot to like there. And I think their defense is good enough to help out Hellebuyck a little bit. Now, in terms of making the playoffs and going on a playoff run, it might be like this season where they get burnt out and lose in the first or second round. But I think they're going to be talented enough to get to the playoffs in 2024. In the chat, but I know he's going to have some thoughts about Minnesota. Now, they're obviously one of their key departures this offseason was Matt Dumba. He's been a face to this team for a long time. He ends up going to AZ. So what does this team look like now? Well, the biggest concern for this team that I have, at least, is they don't have a first-line center. And I expect a lot from Joel Eriksson Ek and Marco Rossi. But if Freddie Gaudreau or Ryan Hartman, who is listed on Daily Faceoff, is their first-line center, that is genuinely concerning. And it seems like year after year, I feel like a broken record. Minnesota cannot get a first-line center. For some reason or another, they cannot get a first-line center. And I think that's going to be their downfall this season. But they have a lot of really good players around that. The electricity of Kaprizov, he could put this team on his back. And reminds me a lot of the young Marian Gaborik. And I love when people bring that up because I think it is very, very apparent just how similar those two guys are in that regard. Matt Zuccarello, you know, he might be injured, I think, to start the year, so that's a little bit concerning. Matt Boldy's back, Marcus Foligno, Marcus Johansson. Those are some guys to like. But ultimately, like I said, a lot of this comes down to that center depth. And Joel Eriksson Ek and Marco Rossi and Connor Dewar, they really have to step up for Minnesota if they want to get to the playoffs. And ultimately, I think Eriksson Ek and Rossi are that good. I think they will be able to get the Minnesota Wild to the playoffs. And again, that Central Division looks a little weak this year with teams like Arizona, St. Louis. I think they could benefit from that as well. And who do we have in the chat? It is Ali Dash. What's going on, Ali Dash? Welcome to the stream. And so moving up. Oh man, I got to do another sound drop. Another sound drop. At number 12, we have the Nashville Predators. And they are a breakout team, in my opinion. That is hysterical. So at number 12 is the Nashville Predators, and I think they're going to be a breakout team in the Central Division. And the reason for that is UC Saros. I think UC Saros is that good. And you want to talk about maybe 1, 2, 3 best goalies in the NHL? I love Sorokin. I love Shesterkin. But it's okay. Maybe I'll go top 5 then. UC Saros is a top 5 goalie in the National Hockey League, and I think he could do a lot to help this team. A lot of people are questioning whether Nashville is legit or not, and that's fair because, you know, the criticism for this team is a lot of the rookies came in last year in garbage time. No expectations for the team to make the playoffs, and they went on a serious run down the stretch. But when I look at some of the additions they made, Ryan O'Reilly, Gustav Nyquist, Luke Schenn, those were some pretty big additions to this team overall. And I think that, you know, a lot of people will look at a guy like Gus Nyquist and say, well, Gus Nyquist of what, 5-10 years ago? He's not the same player. No, he's not the same player. But I can tell you right now, and I actually saw a podcast the other day where the Minnesota Wild were talking about their season and stuff. And they said one of the guys that are actually pretty upset that they lost this summer was Gus Nyquist because he was a difference maker in the playoffs. So I think Gus Nyquist coming in there is really big. O'Reilly, pretty self-explanatory. We know the success that Ryan O'Reilly has had in his NHL career. And same thing for Luke Schenn as well. You know, they have a really good defense there. McDonough, Yossi, Luke Schenn, and Tyson Barrie. That's your top 4. Now, the question is, are we going to see the development of some of the younger guys? Dante Fabro, and I think Alex Carrier is a really underratedly good defenseman as well. I think Nashville is going to be in the playoffs. And not only do I think they're going to be in the playoffs, I have them as the second best team behind the Colorado Avalanche in the Central Division. So I'm going out on a limb on that one. A lot of people will disagree with me. Let me know your guys' thoughts. But I really like what I've seen from them. And Irish said, I love the Preds this year, paying the Avs second-line center $4 million a year. Yeah, that's right. That's true. That's Ryan Johansson, if you guys don't know who he's talking about, which, that's one of the criticisms with Barry Trotz, right? He goes out, he brings some guys in on some interesting contracts, and he took on half of Ryan Johansson's contract to send him to the other team in the Central Division, which we'll get to them in a minute. So at number 11, we're heading up to the Big Apple. It's the New York Rangers. And the Rangers are one of those teams that I think Laviolette's going to have to learn his lesson, because I think that the Rangers' potential, we've seen this team before. You know, I got to be honest with you. Mika Zibanejad, Kreider, Lafreniere, Panarin, we know what they are. And even Blake Wheeler to an extent. But are they going to let some younger guys make the lineup? Because Brennan Ottman, I've been a huge fan of him. And every time I go to games at the Garden, I'm sitting there eating my Garden burger, and they're showing the blue shirt players to watch in the future. There's always from the Flint Firebirds updates and highlight reels of Brennan Ottman. This guy needs to be in the lineup for the Rangers. He's a really good player. He's a big body. He's ready for the NHL. And don't send him to Hartford. Please, don't do that, Peter Laviolette. Don't learn from your mistakes in Washington. Let the young guys play, because sometimes they're actually better than your aging veterans. And I think that's the case here as well. William Culley is another guy I've been a big fan of. So I think the Rangers are only going to be as good as the leash that Peter Laviolette gives the younger players. That defense is still good. Keandre Miller, Adam Fox, Lindgren, who is, Ranger fans, we could start singing the goodbye songs to Lindgren very soon, because there's no way they're going to keep him. He's a good defenseman. He's a top 4 defenseman on a cheap deal. Jacob Trouba, depends on the day with him. Braden Schneider, Eric Gustafson, and they don't even have some of the depth defensemen that are probably going to play in Hartford. Ty Emberson, Robertson, I think it's Nick Robertson or Matt Robertson. One of them. One plays in Toronto, one plays for the Rangers. But either way, that's a pretty good team there. They've got some depth. We know the goalies. It's Igor Shesterkin and Jonathan Quick. So Quickie going back to a team he grew up cheering for in the New York Rangers. So we'll see how that works out. But the bright lights are going to be bright in Manhattan this year. The Rangers, this is win now mode. That's why they brought in Laviolette. And like I said, I think the reason they brought him in is so they could get the most out of those older players. But I think ultimately, like I said, it's going to come down to the younger guys, in my opinion. That's what I think of this team, but we'll see. And also they brought in guys like Nick Bonino. Jimmy Vesey comes back. It'll be interesting to see that. At number 10 is the Florida Panthers. So the Florida Panthers, we obviously know that Cinderella run they went on last year. This is the team of maybe up to Buffalo. I could see them being behind Buffalo and Detroit, as crazy as that sounds. Luis, welcome to the chat, Luis. He said the Florida Panthers are the hottest team in the league. Maybe the hottest in terms of jerseys and their look, but in terms of going to the season, they're also hot on the injury list as well, and that's not good. This is very similar to what we saw from the Panthers last year, which you could look at it one of two ways. Patrick Hornqvist, Aaron Ekblad, Brandon Montour, all either listed as out or on injured reserve. And the problem with that is, like I said, this is exactly how they started last season. A bunch of injuries to start the year, and it never seemed like they could get off on the right foot. And they had to fight their way to make the playoffs, and they ultimately went on the run. But can they do that back-to-back years? You're asking for a lot for the Florida Panthers to do that back-to-back years. Now, they made some pretty significant changes to the team. Evan Rodriguez comes in. Who else came in? We're going to see more of Anton Lundell. I love Anton Lundell. That's going to be the next guy in Florida that nobody talks about and is super underrated. I guarantee you right now, it's going to be Anton Lundell. I'm calling it now. And you guys could give me my $1 million when I'm right on that. Again, some bumps and bruises with guys like Bennett and Tkachuk. We've heard some questions about their health going into the year. So it's going to be interesting to see how things go there. But I still like the Florida Panthers. Spencer Knight's back. He needs to be back better than ever because the expectations are high for him. Same thing with Bobrovsky. So, the Florida Panthers, this is a good team on paper. They have some injuries, though. They have some adversity. How are they going to handle that? That's really what it's going to come down to for this team. So now we get ready for our top 10. Are you guys ready for the top 10? Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. And here we go. There is your top 10. All right. So at number 9 is the Dallas Stars. So many people were hating on me in the summer in Dallas because Dallas, I've always said they don't have enough depth up front. Tyler Seguin, Jamie Benn, Joe Pavelski, they're on the back ends of the career. And the only positive things about Dallas are Miro Heiskanen and Jake Ottinger. And I still stand by that. There's a big but there, though. And the big but is we're starting to see some depth up front. And how good are some of the younger players that could make the lineup this year? Johnston. I always forget his name. Gavrik Bork. Are those guys going to make the difference for the Dallas Stars? Because, to be honest with you, we know how good Hintz is. We know how good Robertson is. But, they bring in Matt Duchene. That's questionable how good he's going to be. Evgeny Dadonov, everybody's so hyped about Dadonov being back. Yeah, he's good, but is he going to put up 20 goals this year? Everyone's treating like he's going to score 25, 30 goals this year for the Dallas Stars. I don't know about that. And again, it's one of those things where with Tyler Seguin and Ben kind of falling down, do we still have the same expectations for them that we've had? And are the other guys around them going to transition to the point where they are better than them and going to really lock this team down? So I want to see what you guys think of that. But I think they're an interesting team to watch this year. Their defense, it's a little bit questionable as well. Suter's good. Heiskanen's good. I love Yanni Hakanpää from Anaheim, but I don't know if he's a top 4 defenseman. And there's no point talking about Ottinger because there's no discussion there. He is a very good goalie. You want to put him in that conversation for top 5 goalies? There you go right there. Jake Ottinger gets in that list as well. And maybe I'll be in the graces of the Dallas Stars fans for a minute because they hate me for some reason. Maybe it's my New York accent and the way I say water or whatever it is. But for some reason, that Dallas Stars fan base has some vindication against me. I don't know what it is, but we'll leave it at that. At number 8 is the Tampa Bay Lightning. Now, I hear some of you guys talking about in the chat about them maybe missing the playoffs. And it's funny you guys say that because right before I loaded this power rankings, I actually did have Tampa Bay lower. And Lightning are missing the playoffs. Lightning is too high. Now again, this is from Luis. Can't make the playoffs in November, but Tampa Bay may miss the playoffs in November. Irish, see, this is how I know Irish watches my YouTube channel, because how many times have I said that? We're the months of the season, okay? October, November, pretty much up until Thanksgiving. American Thanksgiving for my Canadians and Filipinos and whoever else is out there. Oh my God, this team is so good, this and that. Teams don't in October and November. But teams can certainly miss the playoffs in October and November. And the meaning behind that is if you get really far behind the 8 ball, like Tampa might, they could miss the playoffs this year. And reminds me a lot of, I think it was 2016. Was that the last year Tampa missed the playoffs? They started off the season horribly. I think it was 2016, the year they signed Stamkos. They missed the playoffs by like a point or two. It was something ridiculous. And obviously we know the run of success they've had since then. But Vasilevsky being hurt could be a detriment to the Tampa Bay Lightning. Does anybody know the 2 goalies that are expected to be the goalie opening night? Because I'm going to tell you in a second. Because I'll give you a hint. It's not the names that you would think is going to breed winning success at the NHL level. Jonas Johansson. And I always forget this other kid's name. And I cannot pronounce it for my life. It is not Brian Elliott. It is... Cap Friendly has to get their shit together. This is so annoying. Okay. Hugo Alnefelt. I think that's how you say it. It's Jonas Johansson and Hugo Alnefelt. Now, the actual expectations for Alnefelt, I'm going to call him Hugo. I can't say that last name. So Hugo, he's expected to be a really good goalie for the Tampa Bay Lightning. And the expectations are high for him. He had a .904 save percentage last year in Syracuse with the Crunch. But this guy's never played an NHL game. So you have Colorado and Buffalo or wherever else he's been, that team's second or third goalie as your starter, and Hugo. Hugo says if your backup's name is Hugo, it's game over. Wow. All right. No, but like I said, I think the expectation is he could actually be a pretty good goalie. He is still 22 years old, though. That's a lot of pressure for him to be a backup already. Only 2 years in North America. Like I said, he was in Sweden for a long time. Okay, he played 1 game in the NHL last season. 1 game. He had a .700 save percentage. He gave up 9 goals. Hugo gave up 9 goals in his 1 NHL game last season. I have expectations for him. I have high hopes. Potential is there. He was 21, 22 years old when he played that game. But goddamn, that's concerning. Yeah, Shaka said stud. Yeah. But like I said, the expectations for him in the future are good. But based off of what we saw from him in a very limited sample size at the NHL level, there's definitely reason for concern there. And also, this is not the Tampa defense that we've seen in years past. You've got Calvin DeHaan, Zach Bogosian, Chernak, Sergachev, Perbix, and Hedman. So things are changing there in Tampa. Is this the year that Tampa finally falls off? I don't know. Should we have... Is this the year? I don't know. We'll see what happens. Yeah, this could be the season for concern in Tampa Bay. We'll see. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. All right, so moving up to number 7. And let me know your guys' thoughts on Tampa at number 8. Do you guys think Tampa is ready to finally fall off or not? Because I had them actually where Buffalo and Detroit are, and I moved them all the way up. So just to give you guys perspective, I had them at 20, 21, and moved them up to number 8 because of that logo. To be honest with you, it's that logo. And we'll see how it goes. This could come back to bite me. But again, it's the preseason rankings, so who cares? They play opening night. Hugo gives up 9 goals, and they move down to number 21, right? And this is all forgotten. Preseason's over. Let's go to week 1 rankings, right? So we'll see what happens. Number 7, though, the Los Angeles Kings. Now, we are going back to the trumpet because in the Pacific Division, the Los Angeles Kings are my team to watch as a breakout out west. And the reason I say that is I think the expectations are that the Kings will make the playoffs. But I think things are going to be a little bit more than that for this team. And I think when you look at the potential for what the Los Angeles Kings can be, you look at some of the young players there, they've got some depth. I think we saw a lot from Kopitar and Doughty last year. That gives me confidence they'll be good again. As long as the goaltending can hold up for the Los Angeles Kings, they could be a really good team this year. And if goaltending doesn't hold them back like it did last year, they're going to be right there. So we'll see how things go. Like I said, there's always that concern, but I think they've made some changes to this team that they're going to be better, man. This is going to be a good Kings team. Going out on a limb on this one, but I want to know what you guys think. And I 100% agree. You guys talked about Adrian Kempe. Yeah, he is that good. Coach kept him in for all 10 goals. Mike Babcock. Yeah, that is. I think there was a weird situation there, Ali Dash, where Hugo had to stay in. I don't know exactly what happened, but I think it was I think Elliott already got pulled. There was something weird where Vasilevsky or Elliott was playing. The other one got injured, and Hugo had to eat that one. And yeah, that was really I remember that very vividly. It wasn't because John Cooper wanted to keep him in there. It was because of like a necessity. Like it was either Hugo or the backup guy pulling popcorn out of the popcorn stand. So I think that's kind of what that came down to. And maybe it would have been better off if they took the guy from the popcorn stand at that point. But I digress. At number 6 is the Carolina Hurricanes. I don't think there's going to be much debate with the top 6 because I think that you look at Carolina and the rest of these teams up here, the Hurricanes are good. And as much as I have questions about, I think their goaltending is super overrated. And you want a hot take for going for the Hurricanes, their goaltending's over. And I think what makes that goalie tandem of Anderson and Ranta so good is A, their defense, just the personnel, and the structure of their entire system under Brind'Amour. Very defensive minded, keep everything in front of them. And I think that's why the goaltending looks as good as it does that year after year, but I don't think they really have to do much. And there are so many games where, especially as an Islander fan, where the Islanders will get like 16, maybe 20 shots against Carolina, and they frustrate the hell out of me because it's like the goaltending doesn't even have to do anything. They barely have to lift a finger, and they get shutouts. And it's not a knock against those guys necessarily. They did their job, but it's more of just a credit to how good the structure is with Brind'Amour and the way this team is made up. Now, there is some reason for concern, and this happens in all sports, but apparently there is some drama on the ice here. As apparently, I think it was Michael Bunting and I can't remember who the other guy was. I think it was Michael Bunting and Brendan Lemieux were going at it multiple times in practice. And there was actually video of it. I'm not sure how that happened, how that got through, but they were going at it. Like more than just like little scuffle here and there. Like, they were all out personal battling. And it got to the point where Brent Burns actually had to step in. So, again, this might be a nothing burger once the season begins. But there is a little bit, maybe, of a divide there. So we'll see what happens with Carolina. You're going to have a Michael Bunting that's healthy in the lineup, Svechnikov healthy, Aho, Jarvis, Natchez, Kotkaniemi. I mean, if that's not the best team other than the Devils in the Metropolitan Division, I don't know what to say. But I think it's going to be a real interesting battle between Carolina and New Jersey this entire year, right? Because, Carolina's the team that knocked out the Devils in the playoffs last year, and these are probably the two best teams on paper in the Metro. It's gonna be a fight there for the top of that Metro, and I do think it's gonna be between Carolina and New Jersey. And some people will put the Rangers in that conversation, which I think is fair, but I think genuinely it is Carolina and New Jersey at the top. At number 5, we've got the Oilers. And any team with McDavid and Draisaitl on it is going to be good. I don't care what you have in between the pipes. I don't care what you have on defense. But, again, that doesn't necessarily tell you the story for playoffs. And we're not talking about playoffs yet. Playoffs, I think, is a different story. But for a regular season team, Edmonton's going to be toward the top once again. And I think that there's going to be a little bit of parity in that Pacific Division, which might actually make this a little bit more of a fight there. But I think Edmonton is definitely one of the top 2 teams in the Pacific. There's a ton of talent there. Like I said, they might be able to feast on teams like San Jose and Anaheim. But other than that, the Oilers are going to have to fight their way to win hockey games, even in their division. So I think the Oilers are really good. They're a good matchup against teams like Vancouver, Seattle. Who else is in there? I don't even remember who else is in there. But that's besides the point. Calgary. I think Edmonton is better than all those teams by a pretty wide margin. So I have the Oilers at number 5 here. At number 4, and I know Irish is, I think, still in the chat. Number 4 is the Colorado Avalanche. And we've seen this story before. Most recently last season. Starting the season without their captain, Mr. Gaby Landeskog. He's not going to be there all year. And I don't think that even matters for the Avalanche. With how deep they are as a team, how good they are, they had to trade out Alex Newhook because they're so good. This is a really good hockey team, and that might not be the case next year because Devon Toews is in a contract year and some other guys up there. But this is a good team. Now, if Jonathan Drouin and Nathan MacKinnon find the success they had in junior, that would be great. But that storyline has been talked about so much. So much. And I'm getting sick of it because we haven't even really seen them play together since then. So this magical situation where Drouin and MacKinnon are 19 years old, playing in Halifax, doing whatever they were doing at 19 years old, that's not the case anymore. They're not that way anymore. And I just worry that everybody's putting so much attention toward that there's a lot of other really good players on this team. Irish mentioned it earlier. Ryan Johansson comes in on $4 million to be their second-line center. That could be boom or bust. Arturi Lehkonen, I loved when they brought him in from Montreal a couple years back. They bring in Miles Wood, Ross Colton, Tomas Tatar. Those guys could all be really good additions. And then there's guys that could break out this season as well. Guys like Ben Myers, Logan O'Connor, that nobody's really talking about. And, I think this is a really good team, especially that top group of McKinnon and Rantanen. Those two are, I'm going out on a limb on this one. They could be the next duo between Malkin and Crosby with how good they are. That's my thoughts on things, but Nathan MacKinnon and Rantanen, talk about a big ticket. You have Toews this year and Rantanen next year. There's going to be some big contracts given out there in the Mile High City. Like I said, defense, Makar and Toews, probably the best defensive tandem in the league. Really, really solid. And who said that? Toews has a chance for an extension this week. Yeah, we'll see what happens. I just don't know if Colorado has the money to do that because he's taken such a good... He was right now finishing up a contract that is so good, one of the better contracts in the league. He's going to want to get paid, and he sees guys like Josh Manson getting paid and Gerard and obviously Makar. he's going to want some of the pie too, and rightfully so. So I wonder what's going to happen there. But that's going to be an interesting one to kind of watch. What else do we have here? So at number 3 is the New Jersey Devils. So when I look at the Devils, they are a really good team. And some of you guys are saying New Jersey's too high. I think they are going to be that good. I think Simon Nemec, Luke Hughes coming in on the blue line, huge additions. Even with Severson gone, I don't think that really matters that much. And losing guys like Ryan Graves, there's a really good Devils team. And I think that, we saw what Jack Hughes can do. They're going to have a healthy Dawson Mercer, some of the other guys around there. Man, that's going to be a really good team in New Jersey. And I think the Devils, as long as the goaltending is put together, which I do have genuine concern about, but they're not the only team with goalie concerns, so maybe they're able to balance that out. There's a team that if Lindy Ruff can get that magic back from last season and Akira Schmid plays well, that's going to be a tough out for anybody. And if Vitek Vanacek can have a regular season like last year, really going to like what I see from them. At number 2, as we're getting to the end of this one, guys, make sure to like and subscribe to the stream. I would really appreciate that. And hopefully you guys like this new format. It's a little bit different than the way we have been doing things, but hopefully you guys do like it. Like I said, make sure to like and subscribe. And become a member today. We're going to be doing a lot of game streams during the regular season. I'm going to be doing one weekly live stream during the games here and a Power Rankings live stream. So it's going to be twice a week I'll be live streaming on the channel. But for members, we'll be doing more live streams like Q&A style game streams and things like that. So if you would like to see that, make sure to become a member today. And thank you and a shout out once again to our newest member here at the channel, Irish, who became a bronze member this morning. Let's go, Irish. So the Toronto Maple Leafs are number 2. Again, the Leafs are a team that everybody's expecting a lot from, and they are finally maybe meeting what I've expected them to do for a while now, is balancing out some of the bigger players with the skill. And I'm not a GM, so maybe taking my advice ends up crushing the Leafs in their face, but at least we're not going to see Matthews and Marner getting crushed in the face or in the back like they have the last couple years. Revo comes in there. He's a pain in the ass to play against. He's got some attitude, some charisma. That's what this team needs so bad in their locker room, more than anything. And I think Revo coming in there, Tyler Bertuzzi coming in there, it's going to give some attitude to this team that they've desperately been lacking. And I think this is going to be a different Leafs team, man. I love what they can do. They could be in the running for winning the President's Trophy. And that's why I have them as high as I do. Because not only do I think they're going to be a good team here, not only during the regular season, but for once, I think they could be a really good playoff team as well. And I know we're going to have some people saying the Leafs suck and stuff, but I think the Leafs are that good, man. As an Islander fan who is supposed to hate John Tavares and everything Toronto, they're a good team on paper. We'll see if it transfers on the ice, though. Again, there's a preseason ranking, so take with it what you will, but there's definitely something to believe here in what the Leafs have cooking. At number 1, and again, this is purely based off of preseason rankings because once week 1 starts, I don't think Vegas is going to be there still. It's the Vegas Golden Knights, our defending Stanley Cup champions. The Vegas Golden Knights are a really good team, and it's a little bit different. They lose Laurent Brossoit. Riley Smith really hurts. I forgot to mention that when I mentioned Pittsburgh earlier. I think he was a really underrated move during that week of transactions in the NHL. Riley Smith got traded from Vegas to Pittsburgh. That was a really good pickup for them. I think that's a huge loss for Vegas, in all honesty. And another one of the misfits, no longer in Vegas. That's another, again, teardrop coming down. But the Vegas Golden Knights still have a lot there. They re-signed Ivan Barbashev. They still have an interesting goalie tandem, but it didn't seem to matter last year, so what makes me think it's going to matter this year? That's the way Vegas has always been. It seems like they just have never had that number 1 goalie. It's just been a group of whoever's available, right? They need like 5 goalies available because it seems like on any given night, they could lose 1 or 2. and then you're going to your 4th or 5th goalie in your depth chart. So I think the Vegas Golden Knights have done a really good job. Kelly McCrimmon came in there. I gave him some flack early on for some of the moves he made, but they won a Stanley Cup, and he's definitely diverted some of that attention. So the Vegas Golden Knights are still the number 1 team in my opinion. Again, it's purely based off of preseason power rankings, but going into the year, they still have something to prove, because a lot of people, including myself, don't think this is the best roster on paper. So we'll see if they're able to continue that success. I love the new middle of the ice logo for Vegas, so that's one thing I will say positively toward this team. You still have that big, tough blue line that's going to matter, and we'll see how much it plays out for them as the season goes along. So just to quickly recap from 31-1 before we close out. Number 32 is the Sharks. Number 31 is Philly. Number 30 is Chicago. Number 29, the Montreal Canadiens. 28 is Anaheim. 27 is Arizona. 26, we've got the Flames. 25, St. Louis. 24, Columbus. 23, Washington. 22, Seattle. 21, Vancouver. 20, Detroit. 19, Buffalo. 18, Ottawa. 17, the Islanders. 16, Pittsburgh. 15, Boston. 14, Winnipeg. 13, Minnesota. 12, Nashville. 11, Rangers. 10, Florida. 9, Dallas. 8, Tampa. 7, LA. 6, Carolina. 5, Edmonton. 4, Go Avs Go. 3, New Jersey. 2, Toronto. And number 1, the Vegas Golden Knights. Thank you so much to the people who super chatted and supported the channel today. Irish, Toe, Shaka, all you guys. It means the world to me. I'm so happy to see you guys all back here on the live stream. Shout out to all you guys for coming back. Guys, the season is officially upon us. And I think that we're gonna not have a live stream next Sunday for a power rankings, because the regular season doesn't start yet. I don't think till the 10th. So not this coming Sunday, but every Sunday moving forward, except this coming Sunday, we will be doing a weekly power rankings every Sunday morning. So make sure to stay tuned with us as we will be doing those rankings. Like I said, the engagement was really nice today, guys. I really do appreciate it. And hopefully a bunch of you guys that didn't watch the whole stream, you go back and watch the teams that were tanking as we were criticizing the Sharks and the Ducks and some of those other teams. Make sure to go do that so you get a fully fledged idea of all 32 teams going into this season. Guys, that's going to do it for today. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Become a member today. And I will see you guys again next time. Peace out, guys.